Welcome in to 2-for-1 Drafts. Austin Gayle here with Mike Renner on the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast. Really excited to get into this one. Today we're going to be previewing some of the top rookie and prospect matchups to watch. Very fun week in hand, especially with bowl season. Very much looking forward to Friday. Little Justin Herbert versus that Utah defense. And in addition to that, we also interviewed Dane Brugler of The Athletic. I'm pretty excited for that.
Yeah, it was a good interview.
I really like Dane. Definitely a friend of the pod. You've called him a friend of the pod several times.
Yeah, and he hadn't yet to be on the pod, but now he's a real friend.
Dude,
he's
the best friend
of the pod.
Best friend of the pod. But let's go ahead and get right into it. What's on tap? Starting with that Friday game, Utah against Oregon, the Pac-12 championship. Bradley Anae, edge defender of Utah, going against Penei Sewell. I think that is going to be a huge matchup in addition to Justin Herbert. What have you seen from Anae, and who do you think wins this one?
This one is great because Anae went up against Trey Adams, Washington, went up against Austin Jackson, USC, the two top tackles probably that'll go off the board from the Pac-12 this year, and he got them both. He got the better of both of those offensive tackles, and now he's going up against the best offensive tackle in the country. He has the highest grade in the country. He's a true sophomore, not draft eligible, but I've called him the Chase Young of offensive tackle prospects. Ooh. Next year, I mean, he might be, a number one overall pick candidate. Very well could be next year. He's a freak of nature, moves ridiculously for a guy who's listed at, I think, 340, which is just absurd. He's a dude. Only allowed a handful of pressures all season long. So if Anae beats him too, I mean, we could be talking. He could be pushing his way up into our top 5 edge defenders. He's not in there right now, but he could be pushing his way up there if he beats a guy like Penei Sewell. This
is such a huge opportunity for Bradley Anae. This is arguably the best offensive tackle he's gone against all year.
I mean, this is a better opportunity than the Senior Bowl, in my opinion. Like, he's not going to face anyone close to as good as Sewell at the Senior Bowl, so that'll be a good test for him.
Penei Sewell, offensive linemen don't get a ton of recognition in the end of season awards, but he was named PFF's Pac-12 Player of the Year, and for good reason. A 96.6 overall grade for Penei Sewell. He also has a 92.7 pass blocking grade and a 96.1 run blocking grade. That's a triple 90. We talk about triple 80s.
I mean, it's far and away the best season we've ever graded from a sophomore offensive lineman.
That is
not
incredible.
Even close.
And offensive linemen, usually you get to your junior year and your senior year and you start to explode. Yes. To get this kind of production, this kind of grading profile so early in his career, so early in his development, I mean, we're talking about a dude that, like you said, the Chase Young of offensive tackles.
Fake ID, he would be the number one tackle off the board if he was draft eligible this year. That is
insane.
That dude's fake ID says he's 35 right now.
That's incredible.
And no one's questioning him.
All right, let's move forward here. Francis Bernard, he's going to have an opportunity, too, to kind of improve his draft stock in this game.
Yeah, we talked about him, and actually we haven't talked about him. He's a Senior Bowl invite guy, but he made our top 5 linebackers list that we dropped a couple weeks ago. He started his career off at BYU, had a great grade that season, something like a 86.8 coverage grade off the top of my head. I can't precisely remember, but then afterwards he realized he's like, I'm at BYU. I probably
87.8.
87.8. Oh, I was close. He's like, I probably want to have sex, so he transfers to Utah.
Smart.
Realizes that and has played very well for them the past couple of years after transferring. Like I said, got the Senior Bowl invite. 84.6 grade last year, 75.0 this year, but he's still been very good. It's still a well above average coverage grade for him. So I like the way he moves at 6'2", 240. Dude can play linebacker.
His first year at Utah, 84.6 overall grade. Do you attribute that to the sex probably, or there's
the lack of sex? He was putting all his energy into lifting, into coverage basically at that point, and then. It's like Costanza, when he finally has sex, he turns into an idiot. No, but that's not at all. It was just more situational, more circumstance. Made some splash plays that year, 3 picks, 2 picks this year too. But he's been, like I said, he's a top 5 linebacker, moving up our board, can help himself in this game, going up against those dumbass swing screens that Oregon runs. 80 screen completions for Justin Herbert, 4th most of any quarterback. 31% of his completions this year have been on screens, and they just run it to death. So that'll be Francis Bernard. He'll have to track those down.
Looking at Francis Bernard, too, looks like he's got a little bit of versatility in his game. 105 pass rush snaps this year, 18 total pressures, including 14 hurries and 4 hits. Definitely like those off-ball linebackers that have an ability to impact the passing game, both as pass rushers and in coverage. I think that's where the NFL is trending. You need to be athletic enough to beat blocks off the blitz, and also athletic enough to stick with running backs and tight ends in coverage. Francis Bernard, a player to watch this Friday. But the biggest player to watch, Justin Herbert, a guy that has an opportunity to either stick himself firmly in the top 5 or potentially fall out of that top 10 with a bad performance against Utah. This is the best defense he's faced all year.
Yeah.
And I think this is an opportunity. Either he dices them up in a huge upset win over Utah or falls flat. And I think the concerns with Justin Herbert are only magnified with a bad performance against Utah.
Yeah, he's going up against defense that has 5 confirmed Senior Bowl invites on it. That's the most of any defense by far in the country. Terrell Burgess, safety. You have Julian Blackman, their other safety. Bradley Anae, who we touched on. France Bernard, who we touched on. Lecky Fotu, the big-ass DT. The monster DT who owned USC earlier this year. And then their best defensive player, the highest-ranked defensive player on our board, Jaylen Johnson. He's not a senior. So that is a loaded defense. Legitimately, there's a reason why they are the 5th-ranked team in the playoffs. It's because they are very good. That hiccup against USC this year, very much a blip on the radar for them in terms of what they've done all season long. So this will be his biggest test. This will be the biggest test of Justin Herbert's career. Pass, fail. I mean, if he lights up this defense, we can start talking about him as a top 5 quarterback. If he does what we expect, which is, fall flat on his face in a lot of big games, which he's done before, then we're just going to have the same opinion on him. He's a project. He has a big-ass arm, can make a lot of throws a lot of people can't, but he's just a project in terms of what's going on between the helmet.
It's pretty telling from Vegas having Utah as a 7-point favorite in this game against Justin Herbert, who is expected to be maybe a top 10 pick in the 2020 NFL draft. I think that is very telling. Also, I want to go back to that Utah game that lost to USC. Michael Pittman took that game over.
Absolutely. You had to bring him up.
Absolutely took that game over.
Well, he did, though. And you highlighted it going into that week. You were like, Michael Pittman, one to watch, hasn't, one drop or whatever. And he had a drop in that game, which is funny. But then he also lit them up and was a big reason they won.
I think you're going to need a receiver to step up in this game because, like you said, that secondary is very hard to beat. Moving forward, Lecky Fotu, I'm excited to watch that matchup too, though, because the Oregon, the Oregon offensive
there's
line,
a ton of drafting talent that will get drafted on both sides of the ball that we haven't even mentioned yet. The Oregon offensive line has at least 2 confirmed guys going to the Senior Bowl as well. So in Shane Lemieux and I think Calvin Throckmorton, the right guard and right tackle.
Let's go move forward here on the What's on Tap segment. Baylor versus Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship. Denzel Mims versus Parnell Motley. This is going to be a very good matchup. Motley plays a ton of man coverage. Mims can struggle a little bit to create separation at times, but very good in contested catch situations. I do like his improved ball skills this year slightly. Talk to me about that matchup.
Yeah, so our lead college analyst, Cam Miller, he DM'd Parnell Motley. They DM on the reg. He's stealing your thunder here. He's sliding into DMs.
I wasn't involved in
They DM. And I told him to ask Motley, I was like, are you going to follow Mims? I wanted to know his response. Hell yeah, I'm following him all day. Space, 2 exclamation points.
Whoa.
So Parnell Motley will be
before
trekking.
2 exclamation points, too. I think that is emphasis. That is legit. Okay.
He wants you to know.
He finished the DM and he's like, you know what? I'm throwing a couple bangers on the back end here.
The 2 exclamation points that's a number 1 corner in my mind. If you're just like a run-of-the-mill average sort of cornerback prospect, you might give 1 exclamation point. There definitely wouldn't be a space in between them. But yeah, Motley, this is a great matchup for both of them because one, Mims, I've questioned his ability to legitimately get off press. I don't love his shake and his routes at the line of scrimmage. He's very sudden, but he runs very upright. And upright against press coverage sometimes will get you locked up at the line of scrimmage. Parnell Motley, we've talked about before, fantastic at the line, but lacks long speed. Denzel Mims, if he gets a step onto him, will separate from him. So this will be an interesting matchup for both. Very much tape that you're going to go back to come next spring, next April, and be like, hey, if one guy had a resounding win, it's going to be great for his stock, bad for the others.
With Motley too, you have name scouting. I like also, I'm losing the word now.
I don't even know because you didn't even preface anything.
Punctuation scouting.
Oh, punctuation.
If you're going to punctuation scout, 2 exclamation points on the back end of a DM, I'm pretty excited. Yeah. Let's go here. Move over to Charlie Brewer. Baylor quarterback that's gotten some love by PFF. He's graded well at times, but it's not someone we've necessarily talked about as a prospect on the podcast. Where are you with Charlie Brewer?
He's like Cody Kessler level prospect, where it's like he's accurate
not good?
with the football. Not great, but he's accurate with the football underneath, intermediate. Not a good arm. And I think he makes good decisions with football. Only 6 picks this year. He had 9 last year, but I think he had fewer turnover-worthy plays than picks last year and had a 90.4 passing grade last year. Dipped down to 77.3 this year. It's still fine. I think he needs another year. And he has another year of eligibility left, but I think he offers something in that backup realm of the Gardner Minshew to Cody Kessler scale of weak arm quarterbacks.
Going into kind of the depths of the bowl season, you got Louisiana versus App State, but there's some prospects to watch.
Yeah, we're going to touch on all these.
Definitely going to have to turn it on here.
Championship
Robert
games.
Hunt, the offensive tackle, who hasn't played in the game since week 8, but
questionable.
Prior to that, 87.1 overall grade and an 86.0 run blocking grade. This guy has a good grading profile, 6'5", 336 pounds. If you're going to watch a guy on the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, Robert Hunt is a guy to watch.
Yeah, so he's not 100% playing. He's questionable to play this upcoming week. Was questionable to play last week and didn't end up playing. So we'll see if he is a go. But
it's bowl season.
Yeah,
not bowl season. It's championship season.
It's not bowl season yet. But 80.7 pass blocking grade, like I said, 86.0 run blocking grade, only 2 pressures allowed all season long. He barely missed out on our latest top 100. He is a Senior Bowl invite himself. This very lowly recruited guy. I think he played 7-man football in Texas or something. His high school didn't even have full 11 on 11, if I recall correctly, but moves really well for 336 pounds. Probably kicks inside to guard at the next level, though, still. But I'm a fan of his work. So he'll be going up against, if he does play, probably the other biggest prospect in that game, Akeem Davis-Gaither, who's a linebacker. He's only like 215, 220-ish range. So he's going to be an off-ball linebacker at the NFL level, but extremely explosive at that size. And they play him off the edge. They rush him as an edge rusher there for App State. He's a tough sort of projection because he rushes. It's such a role that's not going to be what he plays at the NFL level. You basically just have to bank on his athletic skill. Trump being so great that he can play coverage at the NFL level, and I do think he can. Another guy who barely missed out on our top 100 this past the latest version. But I know Dane Brugler, he made Dane Brugler's top 100, Akeem Davis-Gaither. So some people are big fans of him, and he's also a Senior Bowl invite. So this will be a nice little matchup. They like I said, they will be going up against each other if both are playing.
Sounds like a versatile chess piece. So far this year, he has 22 pressures on 149 pass rush snaps and also an 85.4 pass rush grade. That's impressive for a guy that's undersized. Yeah. Absolutely.
He legitimately wins against offensive linemen. It's not just blitz pressure that he's getting like some guys, some off-ball linebackers. He is actually beating them one-on-one, which beating blocks translates well. If you're a linebacker, go back to a guy like Joe Schobert who beat blocks off the edge. Now he beats blocks at the second level against run plays. It helps to be able to just win those one-on-ones consistently, will also also tends to translate to the NFL.
Let's go to University of Cincinnati versus Memphis in the AAC championship game. Memphis heavily favored, but on the Cincinnati side, tight end Josiah DeGara. This is a guy that, when I was covering UC, I had some opportunities to cover UC, a big leader in the locker room. Everyone loves this guy, and he's also got great production. Him and Desmond Ridder, the quarterback, have a good connection there. He's produced when Desmond Ridder's on. Ridder obviously battling injury for the University of Cincinnati, but I think DeGara, though, has an opportunity to prove himself in this class, which is a very weak tight end class.
Yeah, I do think it is a weak tight end class. He will be at the Senior Bowl, DeGara. He has 470 yards in the year, 7 touchdowns. But the play he's most known for came back in week 1, UCLA. Tracks down from, does the Benjamin Watson. A pick that was going for a pick 6. He's all the way on the other side of the field, tracked the cornerback all the way down to tackle him before he got to the end zone. So, like you mentioned, a leader type player, a lot of heart. He's going to be a coach's dream at the next level. I don't see him necessarily as a special sort of prospect. 6'3", 242. He's kind of in that tweener range to begin with. So a nice day 3 tight end that you'll love as your number 2.
I will say this, though. A lot of his production does come after the catch, and I think he does move well after the catch. I think and with the tight end position, if you're looking for a guy that's on that tweener side, you need to be able to make plays after the catch and force missed tackles. TJ Carter on the opposite side of the ball.
Love
Memphis.
TJ Carter.
This is a guy that I think even last year we started to fall in love with him in press coverage, playing man-to-man, and then also this year a 75.1 coverage grade for TJ Carter. This guy has an opportunity to make himself known in this class with a big game.
I don't even think that does him justice because he has given up over half as many yards as he did last year. He just hasn't had the ball production. He only 5 pass breakups, no interceptions this year. Basically, he's been shied away from. After getting 93 targets last year, only 41. Basically, he locked down his side of the field. No one wanted to test him. Incredible long speed. He's probably going to run sub 4.4. I think this guy's the real deal. We have him 91st on our latest draft board. Only a junior. Not necessarily going to come out, but I think he could and still be a day 2 sort of pick. This dude's definitely the highest rated prospect we have in this game, the UC Memphis game.
Edge defender for Memphis, another name to look at, too. Bryce Hoff, a 90.0 PFF pass rush grade so far, coming off a huge game against Cincinnati in the week prior. Now he's going to go against Cincinnati again. You could see another big day from him. 54 total pressures on the year, 6'3", 245 pounds.
Yeah, this dude, it's crazy that sometimes when you see guys at the same school, they remind you of each other, and sometimes it's very fake and guys try to force comps, but he legitimately, watching him, reminds me exactly of Jannard Avery, where they're kind of capped out at 250. Like, they've got their body into perfect shape to get to 250. But then they're incredibly explosive because of that, because there's no body fat on him. And he has had a monster year after having 41 pressures a year ago. Fairly good year as a sophomore, 54 this year, 90.0 pass rushing grade. Has some juice off the line of scrimmage, some nice moves. To me, he's a nice guy to go in that Jannard Avery range, which Avery was a 5th rounder. You get this guy in the 4th or 5th round. He has some athletic traits to work with. He's not going to go higher because he doesn't have the length and doesn't have the size. Like, you don't. When you have, he's probably going to have sub 33-inch arms. When you just don't have that length, a live defense coordinator is just going to worry about you losing the edge in the run game, not being able to, have any sort of response to offensive tackles at the NFL level that are all super long. But I do think he offers something as a day 3 pick at this point.
Last thing on this AAC championship game, a running back to talk about for Memphis after Darrell Henderson, after Tony Pollard, you have Kenneth Gainwell, a guy that's forced 52 missed tackles on only 202 attempts. Mm-hmm. That is very good production from him. He's also averaging 3.62 yards after contact per attempt and 88.7 overall grade for him. There are so many players to watch in this game. People want to focus on the Power 5 championship games. Yeah. Get down there in the gritty group of 5 because Memphis has got some players.
I don't know where Memphis finds these guys, but Darrell Henderson last year, Tony Pollard this year, Gainwell is on that level as a running back, only a true sophomore, so we get to see him for another year. But dude has receiving chops as well. 41 catches this year for 492 yards, only 1 drop, 16 broken tackles, one of the best, if not the best receiving back in the nation at this point. We're going to be talking about this guy a lot come 2021 draft. Mm-hmm. Definitely a fake ID candidate.
Ooh. Let's go to Georgia versus LSU. Probably a game that everyone's going to want to turn on. Joe Burrow,
There's prospects in this one?
The probable number 1 overall pick, has an opportunity to take on a Georgia defense that is loaded with talent.
I'll be watching UC Memphis.
UC Memphis. But yeah, with Georgia LSU, before we talk quarterback here, let's go to Clavon Chason, the LSU edge defender, going against Andrew Thomas. That is
This is the one where, Chason can make some money here. Mm-hmm. Like, legitimately, because I think he has the ability to beat a tackle like Andrew Thomas. He has the athletic traits. We saw him do it against Samuel Cosmi early in the year. 5 pressures in that game, one of his highest graded games of the year. And Cosmi we're a fan of his as a prospect. Obviously not on Andrew Thomas's level, but we're still a fan of his. If he can have a repeat performance like that against Andrew Thomas, I'd be willing to forgive his kind of lackluster game in to game out performance, because if you can do it against a guy like that, you can do it against NFL level tackles as well. So I do think that this is a very good chance for him to make money. If not, I'd probably say come back to school for him at this point. He's a junior. He, like I said, has not had a lot of production, 22 pressures this year on 264 pass rushes, but all the athleticism in the world, could push himself into a top 10 pick with that, has that top 10 pick sort of athleticism that gets drafted highly, but need to see it.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. I think he gets stonewalled and grabs his books to go back to class. I think Andrew Thomas is in a much better place to dominate this matchup. I think right now you look at Clavon Chason's profile as a pass rusher, just a 79.1 PFF pass rush grade, only 1 game over 70, or 2 games over 77.0.
Not one over 80.
Yeah, he not one over 80. He's rarely dominated, even offensive tackles against Utah State. Georgia Southern, he had a 58.3 pass rush grade. Only 2 pass rush attempts. Okay. So never mind. Never mind on that one. But I will say, I think Andrew Thomas is a better player here. I think I could see him with a 0 pressure performance.
But I will say, Georgia played with a ton of leads this year. They will realistically be playing from behind. Mm-hmm. They'll have to pass. And we'll talk about that with Jake Fromm in a second, about how he's probably going to have to play from behind. Well, last time we saw it against South Carolina, didn't end up too well. But that means true pass sets for Andrew Thomas. That means actual good pass rushing situations for Chason, and not just what you usually get against Georgia, which is, they have 8 guys along the line of scrimmage, right? In tight, and you have to read run first, and then you get to attack Andrew Thomas. No, you're going to probably get 15 or so in the second half of this game where it's legit one-on-one, drop back passing. It's going to be a pass. So that'll be fun to watch.
Let's go to another matchup here. Erik Stokes, the cornerback for Georgia, and going against Jamar Chase, a fake ID candidate every week. It seems like potential Biletnikoff Award winner if it comes down to it. But Erik Stokes, this is a guy that I wrote an article before the season, because looking at his production on just 25 targets in 2018, had an 84.3 coverage grade, 6 passes defensed on 25 targets, and only allowed 10 receptions for 113 yards. I was very impressed with what he did in man coverage.
Yeah.
I think he handled things well, 6'1", around 180 pounds, 180 285 pounds. This year, an 82.4 coverage grade, has been tested a lot more, but still hasn't been giving up a ton of yards. I think Erik Stokes is a guy that maybe not at the top end of the cornerback class, but I think he could rise up boards with a good game against LSU.
I think he could, very much so. We talked about it with DeAndre Baker. I think even more so with Stokes. He has to have contact with the wide receiver to stick with them.
That's the unfortunate thing about all these Georgia cornerbacks.
They just
coach him to do that.
Yes, and he just had to. Did not have the foot speed. I thought Baker showed it at times and was physical at the catch point. I haven't seen quite the same from Stokes. The numbers are great, like you mentioned. Only 262 yards allowed all season long. When he's at the line of scrimmage, he's very good in press coverage. So that will be nice to see. But I think going up against a guy who's produced better than...
If you don't have foot speed against Jamar Chase, you're going to go downhill
Exactly. A guy who's produced
quickly.
as well as any outside receiver in the country this year. I have a hunch Stokes might get exposed in this one.
There's a good chance. I mean, I like Erik Stokes a lot, but like you said, the foot speed is a problem. If he doesn't get contact, even taking advantage of the no contact or the contact allowed at 5-10 yards down the field, if he doesn't get that, he usually struggles. And Jamar Chase, if there's a guy that can burn you in the NFL right now, or in college football, it's Henry Ruggs, Jamar Chase, these guys with legit NFL speed. Let's go to Jake Fromm. Got to talk about Jake Fromm. Talk about a guy who has an opportunity to earn some money. I mean, Jake Fromm has a good game against Grant Delpit, Christian Fulton, Derek Stingley. There's an opportunity to kind of rise up boards.
And then he gets into the playoff, and then you have you face a couple more real defenses, or at least one more real defense there. So I do think he has a very good chance, like you said, to make himself some money here. I'm going to say I don't see it happening again. Another one I don't necessarily see happening because you're going up against such a good secondary, because they just don't necessarily have great receiving talent at Georgia this year, having reloaded, or not necessarily reloaded with a lot of young guys. So I do think it could be an issue, but I do want to see him, if it's not going to make the comeback, at least protect the ball. Don't be throwing it away. Only 4 turnover-worthy plays in the year still for Fromm. Don't
turn the ball over.
Stay that guy. Be that guy against the best defense. If it's not going to happen, don't have that quicksand like we've seen from Jordan Love in the past.
I think this is an opportunity too, as we kind of preview these conference championships and talk about the playoffs, that you can't allow recency bias to affect, to significantly affect a guy's draft stock. Because you look at other guys, Deron Payne, Kevin Dodd, these guys that blow up this time of year. It's easy to just go all in on players like that, and I think you can't afford to. But there are matchups like Penei Sewell versus Bradley Anae that you want to put value in.
Exactly.
But again, you don't let the entire of the recency kind of take over.
Exactly. Don't just because he's doing it on the biggest stage does not mean he's doing it against the biggest competition sometimes.
Exactly.
Like Kevin Dodd rolled some bad offensive tackles, had 10 pressures in the national championship game that year, and like that, you can't let that all of a sudden, just because everyone saw it and it was against, I think it was Alabama that year, because it was against that, does not necessarily mean you had yourself, an unreal performance. You're deserving to fly up draft boards. Just because it happens this time of year doesn't make it any more important than what happened in week 1. So, yeah, those two guys I think are sort of warning signs. Dodd, obviously, with the Titans, didn't even make it to his rookie contract. Deron Payne's been fine, but not worth the top 15 pick where he went. So I do think that don't overreact just because it's happening on the biggest stage. If it's happening against the best players and other best players in the country, yes, we can talk about that. But just because it's on the big stage does not mean it's more valuable than other performances.
There was some personal stuff with Kevin Dodd, too, that kind of had him leave the game.
Yeah, that was a weird situation.
Yeah, it was a very weird situation. Let's go to Hawaii versus Boise State. Cole McDonald has an opportunity to kind of make a play against Boise State. He's an interesting quarterback.
I still like Cole McDonald.
Because I feel like people fell off of him a bit. I mean, he was a very volatile quarterback to start the year. Great big-time throws, and then he'd come back with a weird turnover-worthy play over the middle, to someone's chest. Where are you at with him?
Yeah, we definitely talked about him earlier in this year with the hair and all that.
Oh, that's right.
But he's odd because he has a huge arm, but then great underneath accuracy and iffy intermediate to deep accuracy, and very, very iffy decision making as well. So almost was benched at times this year for Hawaii, but they pass it a ton. They're going to throw the ball around the yard, so he'll be fun to watch. And it'll be fun to watch Curtis Weaver, that edge defender, ended up in his lap probably a handful of times, because the way, like I said, Hawaii, they're passing. They go 5 wide, almost more often than not in that offense. So Curtis Weaver just pin his ears back, get after Cole McDonald. That one will be RIP Hawaii's left tackle.
I mean, Curtis Weaver, talk about a guy who's been impressive this year. A 93.1 PFF pass rush grade, 59 total pressures after getting 55 a year ago. I mean, if Chase Young didn't exist, Curtis Weaver his name would be coming up even more and more, because I think he has an opportunity with a 93.1 PFF pass rush grade. He has an opportunity to set some records himself if Chase Young wasn't already setting those.
Yeah.
Going forward, let's go check out Ezra Cleveland.
Yeah, one more prospect in this game. Ezra Cleveland, left tackle for Boise State, having himself another solid season for the Broncos there. Has had multiple years now of good pass blocking grades. A little soft, but third straight season of an 80-plus pass blocking grade for Boise State. I love his feet. I think he has the athleticism to hold up a tackle and needs to get stronger. Like, it needs to get stronger still. I do think, though, he's probably third or fourth rounder at this point. So a real prospect. Just another guy to watch.
Virginia versus Clemson. We got linebacker Charles Snowden going against Carmen there at Clemson. Snowden's interesting because he plays a good amount in coverage, but he's 6'7", 235 pounds.
Yeah,
what kind of frame is that? This guy is a monster. I mean,
put his comp in the draft guide was Kawhi Leonard.
It's
Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, Kawhi Leonard.
I mean, he just doesn't have necessarily. He's just such an odd prospect, like you mentioned. He doesn't rush the passer particularly well. Doesn't drop into coverage particularly well, but
he does do it, though.
He's a freak of nature athletically, like 6'7", 235, and he moves very, very well on the football field. So he will get drafted at some point. I don't know. I think he has another year of eligibility left, but it'll be interesting to see him go up against Jackson Carman, who's just a monster of a sophomore left tackle. Another fake ID candidate, not on Penny Sewell's level, but he'll be in the first round mix come next year. Just impervious to the bull rush, but I want to see his feet going up against Snowden, who's, when he does win, it's basically just because he's a little quicker than OTs.
Looking at Snowden's pictures right now, I'm blown away. The dude looks like a basketball player on the
field.
In high school, it looks like he played linebacker and wide receiver, which is not surprising at 6'7", 235 pounds. Virginia even has a picture of him snapping the ball. This guy's versatile and then some. Very impressive there. I think it's interesting. But with this guy, though, with these guys that have these frames that do a ton of things but not necessarily well, a master of nothing in the NFL, this jack of all trades, it's just not, not going to do it for me.
I don't believe in him as like a legit prospect. He's like, you take him in the 6th round.
Good coaches like Bill Belichick and company, if you wanted to use him in that versatile role, maybe
put him on a tight end, maybe.
Yeah, I guess.
In man coverage. I don't know.
He's an interesting prospect. I'm glad you highlighted him. Let's go Ohio State versus Wisconsin. Chase Young versus Cole Van Lanen. This is going to be an absolute treat. Van Lanen has struggled against good competition this year. Yeah. You saw that with AJ Epinesa. I see Chase Young putting this guy on the turf more often than not.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the Virginia-Clemson game, like, there's a ton of prospects on Clemson, but no good matchups. With the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, it's like the same. There's a lot of prospects in this game, but there's not really any good matchups. Like Chase Young, Van Lanen, last time it happened, Van Lanen had what, like a sub-10 pass blocking grade? Was it a 0? Did he get a 0 last time? It was just like he got owned in that game. He just does not have neither the strength nor the foot speed to keep up with Chase Young. I'm not sure there's a college offensive tackle that does. It was 5.6 pass blocking grade. That's pretty close.
Man.
But yeah, I think it's going to be that ugly again. I mean, it's Chase Young. So there's really nothing more he has to prove. I think the person with the most to prove possibly in this are the running backs. Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, going up against each other. Both two fairly good run defenses. I do think that if you have a good game against your respective defense, you'll move up draft boards accordingly.
And Jonathan Taylor is a guy, and we're going to get to the Dane Brugler interview soon. Jonathan Taylor's a guy Dane fell in love with. Yeah. He did really like Jonathan Taylor.
He was the only running back he had in the first round.
Yeah, very interesting prospect. I think that I like that. I like that idea, though, going into this game, looking at the running backs and how they handle these run defenses. We're going to jump to that Dane Brugler interview right now, but before we do so, we have a courtesy read from our friends at Proper Cloth. Finding a dress shirt that fits is hard. Collars are too tight, sleeves are too long. Something is always not right. Well, ordering a custom fit shirt has never been easier thanks to Proper Cloth. At propercloth.com, you can easily create a custom shirt in seconds just by answering 10 easy questions. Not only does Proper Cloth make it easy to create your custom size, they make it really simple to completely customize your shirt to get the style you want. Want a bigger pocket or a bigger left cuff for your watch? Customize over 30 different style points to get the exact style you want, or select from hundreds of pre-designed shirts. The team at Proper Cloth works with the best fabric producers from around the world. And they only buy fabrics that meet their high quality expectations. Each one of their shirts goes through extensive quality control testing, so you're getting an absolute best quality and craftsmanship. all of their styles come with a perfect fit guarantee. So if it doesn't fit, you can get it remade completely free. They have a great customer service team based in New York City that makes it super easy to get the shirts remade. Proper Cloth has been featured in many top publications such as New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Esquire, GQ, and Fast Company. GQ even calls them their new favorite online custom shirt maker. Proper Cloth shirts are completely custom made for you and start at just $80. So you're guaranteed to find a style you love with quality that doesn't break your bank. Go to propercloth.com/PFF today. Enter gift code PFF20 to save $20 off your first shirt. Let's dive into that Dane Brugler interview now. And thanks again to our friends at Proper Cloth. All right, Dane, pleasure to have you on. And you are our second guest on the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast. We had Trevor Sikkema from the Draft Network on earlier in the podcast, but we definitely have you on now. So we're excited to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. No, I'm appreciate you guys having me on. You guys do such a great job, covering all things, both NFL and college, and so you guys bring such a unique perspective. So I'm eager to talk some players with you guys. Absolutely.
But before we dive into that, I know Mike was interested. I am as well, and how you got into scouting and how you got into kind of this business.
It's always been my passion. I always wanted to be a scout. Just the evaluation process. What made a college player a good or great or so great NFL player. That just, it fascinated me. And I'm a Northeast Ohio kid, and so when the Browns came back to the league in '99, and that draft with Tim Couch and McNabb and Ricky Williams and on, that's what really drew me in, and I've been fascinated with it ever since. So, I've been lucky enough to, learn and, kind of grow my skill set under a lot of scouts in the league and things like that. And, been blessed to be able to call this my career. So it's a grind and it's a lot of work, but I'll never complain because, I love doing it.
That's good to hear, man. We have the same opinion.
Yeah.
Draft has been a huge passion project for PFF for a long time, and it's great for Mike and myself to kind of turn it into something we can work for and get better at as we move forward. Let's go ahead and dive into some names now. I want to dive into these early declarations, a couple of interesting ones, especially in the receiver class, looking at Isaiah Hodgins. You also have Jalen Reagor of TCU, Laviska Shenault Jr. of Colorado. Give me your overall take on these guys, declaring early and going into the draft.
Well, when I finished my mock draft, there were about a handful of players that I hated to leave off. You can only find so many spots. And with these receivers, you're just kind of searching for, who else needs a receiver? Because I want to get this guy in there. And Reagor was definitely one of those guys who I couldn't find a spot for him in there, and I hated leaving him off. He's only 5'10". The ball skills are okay. They're not great. And I think that's kind of how I justify putting some of these other receivers in there ahead of him. But, he's going to run the 4.3s. He's explosive with the ball in his hand. I just know I want him on my football team. Plus, he has the NFL bloodline. And talking to people close to the TCU program, they say he's a business. He has the competitive juices that kind of required for the next level. So, he didn't have that great junior year. Part of that was the offense and talent around him. But, it just, at the very worst, it means that a team could end up getting a steal in the second round. Shenault, he did make it into my mock draft. In the summer, when I studied his sophomore tape, he was actually my wide receiver number one. I loved his tape over the summer, and I still do. But in a draft class with so much wide receiver talent at the top, we're really going to have to split hairs with how we divide these guys up. And durability and speed concerns, that could be the difference between Shenault being the second receiver drafted or the fifth receiver drafted. So I'm definitely a Shenault fan, 6'2", 225, so strong, love his acceleration. His instincts with the ball in his hand, among the best that I think I've scouted at the receiver position in the last few years. So if he ends up falling out of the top 25 because of the durability questions, or maybe he runs a 4.55s and a 40-yard dash, some team's going to end up getting a steal. And he went maybe 26 to Buffalo in my mock. And then the other receiver you mentioned, Isaiah Hodgins, he's not on the same level as those other two guys for me. Tall, long, lean. You watch his tape, you see a lot of slants, posts, comebacks, a lot of routes requiring one movement, which really fits him because he doesn't have great speed or short area burst. But I do really like his hands, his catch radius. I'm not sure the dynamic traits are there for me to view him as a top 3 or 4 round prospect, but I don't blame him for declaring. He's so productive this year, 86 catches, 13 touchdowns, plus his quarterback's a senior. So, he's a talented, draftable player, probably somewhere on day 3 for me.
So with this ridiculously loaded wide receiver class, where do you see it kind of in the history of wide receiver classes? Is this better than 14? The one with Odell, Mike Evans, Sammy Watkins, Devontae Adams, Allen Robinson. Is it a better class if, all these juniors declare in your eyes?
You can certainly make that argument. And the fascinating part is we might not even see any of these receivers go top 10. When it's all said and done, I think we're going to see a lot of offensive tackles in the top 10, some quarterbacks, obviously Chase Young, Derek Brown could get in there, Epinesa, Okuda. So we might not even see any of these receivers in the top 10 picks. But between picks 20 and, 100 and on, we're just going to have so many wideouts drafted. I think it is tough to compare it to 2014 because in hindsight, that 2014 class, I think it's something like 6 of the top 8 highest paid receivers right now in the league came out of that 2014 class. So not only was it a great class at the time and as prospects, but a lot of those guys have lived up to it with how they've played in the NFL. The contracts kind of bearing that out. So this is the chance to be an historic class, no question. But again, I don't think we have that A.J. Green, Julio Jones, the clear-cut, no-brainer top 10 pick. We just have more volume of quality guys that can step into an NFL offense to be productive.
I want to go back to what you said about the offensive tackle class because Mike and I both think it's going to be a fantastic offensive tackle class. And looking at your latest mock draft, you have Jedrick Wills Jr., the Alabama offensive tackle, going number 3, first offensive tackle off the board to the Washington Redskins. And I think that's awesome. You got big Jedrick Wills fans in the room right now. But what I also noticed, no Alex Leatherwood. Those 2 Alabama offensive tackles kind of on different worlds for you. I'm interested in your take on Wills and Leatherwood.
Yeah, I think I surprised some people with Wills as my top tackle off the board and being a top 3 pick. But he's the best offensive tackle that personally I have scouted so far in this draft class, plain and simple. And I think there will be some teams who end up agreeing with me if Wills does end up declaring. I mean, there's not much that you can't like with him. He's got that wide, flexible base and pass protection. He's explosive through his hips, terrific balance. He's never on the ground. We know he's a mauler in the run game, just really explosive with what he does, clearing holes and helping out on the edges. There are some technical aspects of his game that I think need improved. Can he play on the left side? That's something that, we'd have to answer through, workouts and things like that. But I'm betting on his skills and that upside to be the best of the group. And, I really do like Leatherwood. I think he was maybe number 25 overall on my top 100 board that I came out with last month. But I think he struggled some in the second half this year. That has me a little bit concerned. He's a little stiff in his lower body, and he can compensate for that pretty well for most of the game. But there are just a handful of times when I'm watching and I'm thinking how, okay, an NFL pass rusher is going to be able to expose that. And so I do really like Leatherwood, and I almost included him in my first-round mock. He was one of those 5 or 6 guys that I didn't have a spot for, and I hated leaving him off, but just how it worked out. So I do have some concerns, but, and I know some NFL teams, they actually like him better inside at guard where we saw him last year. But I think he's had a good year at left tackle. I think he has certainly made a case to be a first-round player.
So in your mock and my latest mock that draft Monday, we agreed on 5 different picks. Obviously, the top 2, I think everyone's going to agree on with Joe Burrow, Chase Young. Those are going to be set in stone for the rest. But we also agreed on Tristan Wirfs to the Arizona Cardinals, Javon Kinlaw to the Carolina Panthers, and then the one I want to talk about, number 22 overall, Josh Jones, the Houston tackle, to the Miami Dolphins. Talk to me about what you've seen from him, because I know he was not high on your board. He wasn't high on your board heading into the season, but what you've seen from him to put him that highly now in the first round.
Yeah, and I think that when you dive more into his background and kind of where he's come, I think that really explains the maturation that he showed. He has 5 different offensive line coaches at Houston over his tenure, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, that is.
Three different offenses. I mean, that's really stunted his development, and I think that really is because when I watched him over the summer, I saw a good player, but a guy that had ankle issues, needed to stay off the ground. But this year, he's doing a much better job of that. He just looks like a more mature player. And so the more I've watched him this year, the more I've kind of appreciated him for what he offers. There's some Andre Dillard to his game. And I think that he's going to show that in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. So, he's light on his feet, the tape after tape after tape. And I don't know if he's faced any, elite pass rushers this year, but, the tapes that I have watched, Tulane, SMU, Washington State, he gets proper depth. He's well-timed with his punch. He's flexible with his movements. I think he has a body control where he can handle space. He can climb to the second level. I do worry a little bit about just the growth potential. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's heavier than, say, 305. Around that, I do think there are some body type restrictions, so you have to be okay with that. But I do think that he has put himself in the first round mix if he performs like I think we both think he can at the Senior Bowl and then throughout the process.
Absolutely. Let's move forward to. I noticed you wrote a player profile on Alex Highsmith. Had an opportunity to interview him, and he's a guy that when you look at PFF system, he grades very, very well against bad competition. Not necessarily, I guess not the best of competition, but he still grades really well. A very good pass rusher this year. He's a guy that Mike I know has mentioned a handful of times as a player to watch. What is your take on him, and how do you see him fitting into this class?
Yeah, and my favorite part of scouting and doing this job is discovering the journeys of all these guys. I talk about with Josh Jones and having to play in so many different schemes with 5 different offensive line coaches and how that's part of his journey to today. And what when that's context that's required. And with Alex Highsmith, he's just one of those guys that's a late bloomer. When I talked to him, he called himself short and chubby in high school. He was a middle linebacker. He didn't have many college options until Charlotte gave him a walk-on opportunity. And even at Charlotte, he was kind of slow to work his way onto the field. He played that 4-eye position in their scheme as a junior last year, the inside shaded tackle. And he was productive, but he wasn't asked to simply rush the passer. And that changed this year with the new coaching staff coming in. They moved him outside. They developed his rush moves. And to his credit, you can see how hard he worked on the technical aspects of the position, using his hand, introducing a spin move, and setting up the different ways that he could beat you. So I think that's translated into production. He told me that he wrote down the number 12 on a whiteboard in his apartment. That was his goal for his sack total this year. He just hit 14 last weekend. He's second in the FBS in sacks. So, big Alex Highsmith fan. Charlotte doesn't face top tier, offensive lines on a consistent basis, but against Clemson, Dabo Swinney called him the best player that they had gone against up to that point. The Carmen, the left tackle, who's one of the better sophomore tackles. We'll be talking about him at this point next year as being one of the more talented draftable guys. He called him the best player that he ever went against since he started playing football. So some high praise from Clemson. The coaches speak really high about him, and Alex, he comes off as a really great kid. Not to mention the skills are there, the production's there. The measurables might not be elite, and that could keep him from maybe being a top 2 round, maybe even a top 3 round prospect, but somewhere around 3, 4, 5, the team's going to get a pretty good pass rush.
Yeah, he snuck into our latest top 100 because the latter part was that Clemson game. I mean, he had a 79.0 pass rush grade in that game. It was like the highest we've ever seen against Carmen or any of those Clemson tackles this year. But I want to get into some of the guys you're high on in this class and some of the guys you're low on. We'll start with higher than most. We touched on Alex Leatherwood. I know you've been banging the Jordan Love drum for a while now, the Utah State QB. Are there any others? And I'd like to hear your thoughts on Love as well in terms of guys you're higher on, you think, than most in this class.
Well, I mean, Jedrick Wills, obviously, I think a little bit higher than most on him. Jordan Love, I'm not giving up on Jordan Love. It's just when you talk about context of these players, it can be tough to separate excuses and reasons when you talk about a player like Jordan Love. A new coaching staff coming in, only one returning starter on offense this year. Not a lot of NFL level talent around him. Are these excuses or are they reasons for his decline in production? Now, and a big part of that too is in the LSU game. I mean, perfect example. He had some nice throws in that first quarter, but as soon as they went down, he started to press, and that led to 3 interceptions. And it's just the game got away from him. But he's a guy that when you look at the raw tools, it's easy to get excited. He's a good sized athlete. He has a really loose arm. Love his downfield touch. It's just we have to kind of get into his mind to see where he is mentally with his development. Because his decision making can be up and down on tape. He's got an interesting decision coming up. I'm told he's kind of 50-50 about whether he's going to come out for the NFL or if he's going to go back to school. And if he does go back to school, he is a prime candidate to be a grad transfer. Texas Tech is going to be mentioned quite a bit to maybe rejoin the former coaches that he used to have at Utah State. So, I think that's really going to be an interesting wrinkle. I did not include him in this mock draft, but NFL teams, I think they're not, at least the guys that I talk to, they're still high on him. They're at least intrigued with him. And I think if Jordan Love, if he goes, because he will graduate in December, so if he does declare, he will be at the Senior Bowl as long as he accepts. If he goes to the Senior Bowl and has a great week, I mean, he's right there again, back in the top 20 discussion for a lot of NFL teams as a prospect. So, there's a lot right now that we're kind of trying to bridge the gap with Jordan Love. So I think we'll get a better, more clear picture the further into the process we go. Guys that maybe I might be a little bit higher on, I think Austin Jackson at USC, another tackle. Becton at Louisville. I think 6 offensive tackles in the first round of my mock, and so many teams around the league are looking for tackle help, and this draft class is kind of the remedy to that. With all the offensive talent at that position that's going to be offered. So some of these offensive tackles, I think I might be a little bit higher on than most.
Let's go to who you're lower on.
Yeah.
Would love to hear, some of the players that maybe you're seeing.
Yeah, we love trashing guys.
Yeah. Well, you see on Twitter that, some pundits are high on, but maybe you're just kind of taking a step back from.
Julian Okwara from Notre Dame, I struggle with him. You take out that 3-sack performance against Virginia and just take the rest of his games, and it's just kind of, you see the athleticism. He's got tests off the charts at the combine if he's healthy, and that's why he didn't just make it into my draft, is because he's such a freak athletically, but the production's not there. And Notre Dame, they have him dropping quite a bit, and not just pinning his ears back and rushing. But even when he does rush, you see more of a athlete than a polished pass rusher at this point. So I do have some questions with Okwara that would worry me, talking about a first round type of player. And then a couple others, Raekwon Davis at Alabama. I mean, I get it; he's a mammoth dude, but I don't see a first round player. If I'm going to take a guy like that in the first round, he's got to give me more as a pass rusher. I just don't think he has those instincts to do that. He'll make some plays in the run game, but not to the point where I think he's a first round player. And then Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma. On Twitter, I'll see some people propping him up as maybe a first round guy, or maybe even a top 50 guy, and I don't see that. I really struggle with his evaluation because I think the football character is off the charts. I mean, teams are going to love the kid when they sit down with him and, just talk football and everything. But when you watch the tape, it's just the anticipation's not there. The ball too long. He's missing open receivers. He really will force throws. He'll telegraph throws. And there's just a lot of things there that make me back off. Like all these quarterbacks, how they do during the process will be a big factor. How Jalen Hurts does at the Senior Bowl will matter quite a bit. And I think if he has a great process, he could end up in maybe that second or third round. He could convince the team to draft him. But if he shows the same concerns that we see on tape at the Senior Bowl and the Combine, then, he's more of a, third, fourth round type of guy. So I'm not all aboard the Jalen Hurts bandwagon just yet.
Let's get into this running back class. Looking at your mock, you have Jonathan Taylor going in the first round. We at PFF, Mike, especially loves Travis Etienne of Clemson. We see him as kind of the best back in the country right now, and also in this draft class. And I think Travis Etienne maybe not getting enough love from others. I would love your take on Jonathan Taylor, obviously, and then also the rest of this running back class.
Yeah, well, and with Etienne, I think that I struggled with the running backs with my mock draft because I ran out of spots to put these guys. And I had one running back going in the first round, and that was Jonathan Taylor to the Dolphins. And even that felt a little forced. It's just, there's not a lot of obvious spots for running backs in the first round this year. But we could still see 2 or 3 end up there. And I think Etienne and DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor are the kind of prime candidates to go that high. And I love Etienne with what he does with his athletic lower half. I think he's a better athlete than back right now. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, I think that context is kind of required because with any type of space, he has ridiculous speed. He rarely slows down. He's able to make those sharp cuts at top speed, and defenders just have no answer for that. Now, I do think as an inside runner, he will hit the hole hard. He does have the speed, and he can go through arm tackles, but he's not the most graceful in tight spaces when it's not 100% clean. I think he does need to improve as an inside runner. Doesn't have a great feel for patience and tempo right now. But I think that when you talk about the athleticism and the dangerous ability that he has with the ball in his hands, that's going to be enticing and maybe even enticing enough to get into the first round. So I think that is possible. I think he's improved as a receiver this year. That'll help him as well. J.K. Dobbins is the interesting one for me because he's not overly flashy. He's not, a burst guy. He's not an explosive back. But, man, his vision is special. He is such a skilled runner at the line of scrimmage, at reading the block, anticipating the holes, having the patience required to allow the blocks to do their job, and then hitting it at the right time. And then when he does get to the second level, he does have some elusiveness to him with his run power, with his quickness. He's just a smart runner. He's a proximity back. He understands when everything's in motion how he can get the most out of every run. And so it wouldn't surprise me if J.K. Dobbins ends up being kind of the Nick Chubb of this back, where he's not a first-round guy, goes in the second round, just ends up being a productive player. He has that type of ability. But like I said, Jonathan Taylor was the only running back that made it in my first-round mock. I think he's, with the concerted effort to get him the ball more as a receiver, to get him more involved in passing situations, that has helped him this year. He's a total package. I think he'd be a great fit for Brian Flores in Miami with what he's trying to build there with that culture, and with that what he could do with the ground game as well.
I do agree, though, about you saying forcing running backs in the first round. With this wide receiver class, I just don't see how you can, in the mid-20s there, take a running back over someone like T. Higgins sitting at, someone like Jalen Reagor. Like, I just couldn't fathom drafting one of those guys with just the way the league is trending.
Right. No, I agree 100%. And I'm looking through, like, the back half of round one, and I almost gave I thought about giving Etienne or Swift to the Ravens just to you strengthen a strength with what they're doing there, but it's just, I don't know if they would do that just because they don't have to. They can take a pass rusher or corner, and then, because this is going to be a talented running back group. You could get a Cam Akers on day 2 of the draft. Anthony McFarland and Najee Harris and the LSU kid, Benjamin. I mean, Chuba Hubbard. There's a lot of running backs in this group where, if I miss out on Etienne or Swift or one of these guys in the first round, I'm feeling okay because I think I can get another good one and on day 2, where with receiver, these guys are going to get snatched up pretty quickly.
I feel that way a lot about a lot of running back classes too in the draft. Even going back to previous draft classes, you look at the running back position. You could take a guy early, you could take a guy in the top 50, but there's always a couple names on the back end where you feel comfortable attacking, like you said, Chuba Hubbard, etc. This has been fantastic, Dane. We really appreciate you coming on 2-for-1 Drafts, walking through your mock draft and all that stuff. We're definitely going to have to connect when we go down to the Senior Bowl and then do some more stuff there. But again, we really appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to talk again soon.
I look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Man, Dane Brugler, absolutely fantastic interview. And I want to say this. His scouting term game is through the fucking roof.
He's been doing it, like I said, since 99 is when he started getting in the scouting term game. I haven't been doing it that long.
Dude.
Like, I need to build... I need to have like my own dictionary that I a thesaurus that I pull from for scouting terms.
Athletic lower frame. I was on the edge of my seat waiting for him to say oily hips or something. I was getting really excited. But again, in addition to scouting terms, great insight, great analysis. I think Dane, a friend of the pod, we're going to have to get him on again.
He puts in the work. Like you can tell he puts in the work because he has background info. He has watched all these guys and he'll give you his exposure to all these guys, what games he's watched. And you have to, I respect the people that do that because, not to name names, there obviously you can tell when people don't do it. There's good analysis and you can tell when there's bad analysis.
Firmly recommend you guys follow Dane Brugler on Twitter. Follow him at The Athletic. It's worth the price of the subscription. A ton of good writers there in addition to Dane Brugler. But again, we'll probably have him on in the near future, connect with him at the Senior Bowl. But moving forward, we're going to go ahead and touch on draft specials, the 2-for-1 Draft podcast segment where we talk about some of the best rookie matchups coming up in the NFL. It may be championship week, but the NFL is still going on and rookies are still making plays. First one we got to go with Carolina's Brian Burns, who's struggled a bit down the late after a hot start going against Kaleb McGary of the Atlanta Falcons. Rookie on rookie, do love that.
Yeah, you always love to see those rookie matchups for Kaleb McGary. Has not really gone his way this year. 11 sacks already allowed. One of the highest totals in the NFL. That's close to on pace for the most we've ever seen. I think that was by Colton Miller last year or something like 17. So not going great for him. I don't want to say it, but I didn't think he was surefire. I can't believe they took him in the first round. I was just I didn't think he was that. I was fine with taking him late second. That's where we had him, something like 60th on our board. Just I was floored with him and the Lindstrom. Felt like big reaches for need, and obviously they haven't fixed the offensive line. That offensive line got decimated. It just got murdered by the Saints. Saints had 3 defensive linemen on our team of the week last year because that offensive line still so bad. So Brian Burns eat you some. It's a very good matchup for him to win.
Definitely. Let's go forward here. Terry McLaurin going against Jair Alexander. Really excited for this matchup. If you haven't listened to the Tuesday edition of the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast, we interviewed Terry McLaurin about his matchup with Darius Slay. This is an even better matchup against Jair Alexander, a guy that can go toe-to-toe in man coverage with McLaurin. I think McLaurin, man, after talking to him, I'm really impressed with how this guy's attacking the game, how he does preparation. He knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses, and how to beat guys. He talked about that Slay matchup as a chess match. He needed to win with speed and then come on over-unders and stuff. I think McLaurin versus Jair, this is a huge opportunity for Terry McLaurin to kind of cement himself as what I think already is the best rookie receiver this year. I mean, he's played at a very high level.
That's high praise, and I can't necessarily disagree with it. He has been very good with a not very good quarterback situation there with the Redskins. I hope the Packers, they haven't had Jair Alexander track a receiver since week 6. They had that Mark Cooper debacle in week 5, week 6. All of a sudden, Kevin King gets owned by Kenny Galladay on the other side. They went King on Galladay, Jair on Marvin Jones. Jair locked down Marvin Jones. King did not so much, gave up over 100 yards in that one. So they kind of scrapped that. Haven't done it since, but this game makes a ton of sense to do it. Jair Alexander is a tailor-made cornerback for Terry McLaurin. Kevin King far more capable of guarding someone like Paul Richardson or even Kelvin Harmon. So I do think, I'm just going to call it right now, call my shot, Jair Alexander tracks Terry McLaurin. This one's a great matchup because, Jair Alexander, top 10 cornerback in the NFL right now. If Terry McLaurin gives him a little bit, gives him 100, We're talking about Terry McLaurin as
is,
one of the best rookie seasons in quite some time.
I don't think a ton of people are looking forward to watching the Washington Redskins against Green Bay Packers, but I think if you do turn it on, I think there is a little matchup within the game that would be very interesting. Let's go to the Dolphins. The rookie guards this year have not played well. Let's go ahead and say it. They have not played well, and now they're going against.
They've had more blackout appearances at this point than
you have every
he must not be.
You have this season.
I was going to say that he must not be named at this point because we can't talk about it. We talked about it too much at the beginning of the season.
True.
We can't anymore. But that guy's actually turned around. But they've had a ton of blackout performances. Deion Calhoun made it last week. Michael Dieters made it a handful of times. They just got thrust into action a little too early.
Yeah, but with Quinnen Williams though, very talented at Alabama. But he has struggled this year.
I know.
He has not panned out for the New York Jets. Only 13 total pressures on 273 pass rush snaps. The rookie, not the rookie wall, but the rookie learning curve has been big for him. I think he's struggling to take a step forward.
A lot of that scheme though, Greg Williams is like their run first there on the interior, not attacking whatsoever. And at Alabama, he had sort of carte blanche to attack a little bit. Like they knew he was special talent. They said, if you're in one gap and you think you can get him in the other, and get him in the other. They did not necessarily pigeonhole him, but Greg Williams, what he's known for. I mean, last year he had Myles Garrett only doing 2 pass rushing moves to sort of play contain there on the outside. Similar thing probably this year with Quinnen Williams, not given that freedom yet at Alabama, but that's concerning. You'd like for him to still be getting the job done at some point without that freedom. Call an excuse if you want to call an excuse, but I do think he's sort of you have to get that caveat in there when you talk about his lack of production this year. It's still his only 21. He's still a young ass dude.
That's true. He's very young. Let's go to Josh Allen, the edge defender for the Jacksonville Jaguars, going against the Los Angeles Chargers in what I think could be a very rough game for the Chargers offensive tackles, as it has been kind of all year long. I mean, the Chargers at left and right tackle have battled injuries, and the guys that are replacing them have really, really struggled. I think Josh Allen, this is his game to win. I think he's been good as a pass rusher this year, but I think he can have a really good game here and cap off a rookie season that's been strong. Yeah,
Sam Tevy just came back last week for the Chargers, gave up a sack, a couple other hits in that game. Par for the course for him, but Josh Allen's sort of been quiet down the stretch. 4 straight games now with pass rushing grades below 60. Does have now 10 sacks in the season. The production, the volume is because he's rushed the passer 305 times. The volume of pressures has been there, not necessarily the down-to-down consistency. If any game is going to boost your down-to-down consistency, though, it's going up against the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers made the Raiders pass rush look like all-American team there. I mean, right now, Trent Scott has allowed 40 total pressures, tied for the third most in the NFL. And Sam Tevy has battled injuries, but he's still allowed 31 total pressures himself. Yeah. It's not been good. It's been bad. Let's just go call it what it is. Let's move forward and grab another piece here. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside going against Cory Valentine and DeAndre Baker. I said Arcega.
Hit me with the Arcega.
I had to hit you with the Arcega. He has not had a good start to this year, though. Can we start before we talk about the matchup against Valentine and DeAndre Baker, 2 rookies there for the New York Giants? Man,
he's making me look like a goddamn idiot.
Unfortunately, really unfortunately.
I mean, I've had some ugly calls here right out the gate as rookies, but that's why I say don't judge guys. Don't take that victory lap week 1, and don't count a guy out year 1. I don't think that he's written off by any means, but if you're gonna do it, the light's gonna flash on at any point, better fucking happen against the Giants secondary. The Giants secondary is butt, and they have Cory Valentine, 2 rookies, and Cory Valentine and DeAndre Baker in that secondary playing cornerback for them right now that you need to take advantage of.
And it's not like Arcega-Whiteside has been buried down the depth chart. It's not like he's
J-Joss. I can't hear Arcega-Whiteside. And it just reminds me, I had not a lisp growing up, but I had a speech impediment, and I just that
I didn't
when
bring
you
that
say
up,
that.
Dog. Hey, Tim, I'm so sorry.
It gives me PTSD flashbacks. I'm like,
jeez.
Those L's and R's, not whatever that would be. That's more of a lisp, actually, saying Arcega-Whiteside. But
talk about hitting a nerve. J-Jaws. With Cory Valentine and DeAndre Baker, I mean, he has an opportunity to light him up. I think this is a time to step up.
Exactly.
I think,
this is Cory Valentine a couple weeks ago against the Bears. Mitch Trubisky, we talked about blackout segment, 188 yards, 12 of 14 targets. Now, he didn't play as much as past week against the Packers, but I do think that him and DeAndre Baker, they're beatable. They are beatable corners. You should beat them.
This would be a huge opportunity for Jay Jaws to come out and have a good game. Cap off a rookie that's been otherwise a disappointment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That's going to do it for the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast, going through those segments there and talking with Dane Brugler. Thanks again. Remember, you can find us on YouTube. We're also on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. That's going to do it, though. Austin Gayle, Mike Renner, 2-for-1 Drafts.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.